The desert was cruel that night. The kind of cruel that seeped into a man's bones, turning the wind into claws that scraped at the windows and howled through every crack in the house. Luke Harding had been mending the barn door since sundown, and by the time he finished, his lantern was little more than a dying ember. The horses were restless, stamping and snorting, their ears flicking toward the darkness like they could sense something coming. Luke figured it was just the storm. He was wrong. He was halfway to the porch when he heard it, the sharp, desperate rhythm of hooves pounding through mud, faster than any rider had business going in weather like this. He squinted into the night, rain soaking through his shirt, his heart thudding like the hooves themselves. For a moment, there was nothing but darkness. Then he saw her, a figure stumbling along the dirt road, no horse beneath her, barefoot and swaying with every step. "Hey," Luke shouted, his voice barely rising over the wind. "Miss, you all right?" The woman didn't answer. Her legs buckled, and she crumpled into the mud before he reached her. He dropped to his knees beside her, his calloused hands brushing the hair from her face. She was young, maybe mid-20s, but so pale it made his chest tighten. Rain and dirt streaked her skin, and her long black hair clung to her neck like soaked silk. She was wrapped in a torn white cloth that looked like it had once been a dress, now ripped and plastered to her trembling body. "Easy now," he said softly. "You're safe. Let's get you out of this storm." Her lips trembled as she tried to speak. "Please." Her voice was fragile, like a leaf about to tear. "Please, don't take the cloth off." He frowned, blinking rain from his eyes. "All right," he said, "I won't, but you're gonna freeze if I don't get you by the fire." He lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days, and he could feel the tremor of her body against his chest. By the time he reached the porch, thunder cracked so loud it shook the windows. Inside, he laid her near the hearth, lighting the fire with trembling fingers. Flames came to life, chasing the cold from the room. Luke grabbed an old blanket from the chair and draped it over her shoulders. Her breathing steadied, but she still clutched the white cloth like it was the only thing keeping her alive. He poured water into a tin cup and knelt beside her. "Here, drink this." Her hand shook as she took it. "Thank you." Luke studied her quietly, trying not to stare. She wasn't from around here, that much was clear. Her features were soft but strong, her eyes deep and dark, like wells that held stories he couldn't begin to understand. "I'm Luke Harding," he said gently. "I run this ranch. What's your name?" She hesitated, glancing toward the door as if expecting someone to burst through it. "Mara," she said finally. "That's a pretty name," he said. "Mara, what happened to you? Were you attacked?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her eyes darted to the window, then back to the fire. "They were going to kill me." The words were quiet but heavy, landing like stones in Luke's chest. He leaned forward. "Who?" "My people," she whispered. "They said I was cursed." Luke frowned. "Cursed? Why would anyone say something like that?" Mara's gaze fell to the flames. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me," he said. But she shook her head. "Please, just let me rest. I've been running for 2 days." He wanted to ask more, but he saw the exhaustion in her eyes. He nodded. "All right, you're safe here. Nobody's gonna hurt you." He moved to fetch her something dry to wear, his sister's old dress from a chest in the next room. When he came back, she was staring into the fire, her expression distant. He held out the folded fabric. "Here, you can change behind that screen. I'll give you some privacy." Her eyes widened, and she pressed a hand against her chest. "No." The word came out sharp and frightened. "Please, I can't take this off." Luke blinked, startled. "It's all right, Mara, I ain't gonna look. I just don't want you catching a fever." Her voice trembled. "You don't understand. If this cloth comes off, they'll find me." "Who will?" he asked softly. Before she could answer, a sound echoed outside, the faint crunch of gravel beneath hooves. Luke froze. Mara's eyes went wide. "It's them." "Who's them?" he said, already moving toward the window. "Please," she whispered, "don't let them see me." Luke pulled the curtain back. Through the rain, 3 figures on horseback were moving toward the ranch. They carried torches that flared like angry eyes in the dark. He turned to Mara. "Stay here." She reached for him, her fingers brushing his wrist. "They'll kill you too if they think you're helping me." Luke gave her a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I've faced worse." He grabbed his rifle from the wall and stepped into the storm. The wind hit him like a wall, but he didn't waver. The riders slowed when they saw him, their torches hissing in the rain. One of them, tall and draped in a dark cloak, called out. "You seen a woman pass through here?" Luke's jaw tightened. "Can't say I have." The man leaned forward in his saddle. "She's dangerous. If she comes to you, you best hand her over." Luke lifted his rifle just enough to make his point. "Ain't in the business of handing people over. Especially not to strangers riding through the rain." The man's eyes flashed beneath his hood. For a tense moment, the storm was the only sound between them. Then, with a click of his tongue, the rider turned his horse. "You'll regret that, rancher." Luke watched until their torches disappeared into the hills. He stood in the rain for a long time, his heart pounding. Something about those men, about the way they'd spoken, made his skin crawl. When he returned inside, Mara was sitting on the floor, her face buried in her hands. She looked up when he entered, tears streaking her cheeks. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. "They'll be back." "I don't care," Luke said, closing the door behind him. "They don't get to decide who lives and who doesn't. Not while I'm here." Her lips trembled. "You're a fool." He gave a tired smile. "Yeah, been called that before." She let out a shaky breath, staring into the fire again. "You don't know what you've done, Luke. Those men, they can feel me. The cloth keeps the light hidden, but if I lose it," she trailed off, clutching the fabric tighter around her shoulders. Luke knelt beside her, voice gentle. "What light?" Her eyes met his, wide and fearful. "The one inside me." He didn't know what to say. He wanted to believe she was just scared, that her words were born from exhaustion and trauma. But something in her eyes told him otherwise. Something ancient, something real. Outside, thunder rumbled across the desert, and the firelight flickered over her face. For the first time, Luke noticed a faint shimmer at the edge of the cloth, like the glow of moonlight trapped beneath it. He blinked, his breath catching in his throat. Mara turned away quickly, pulling the fabric higher. "You saw it," she whispered. Luke said nothing. He just sat there beside her, the storm raging beyond the walls, wondering what kind of secret he had just brought into his home, and why, deep down, he already knew he'd never let her go. The morning came slowly, like the world itself was afraid to open its eyes after the storm. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and juniper, and a faint mist clung to the hills beyond the ranch. Luke hadn't slept at all. He'd sat in his chair all night, the rifle leaning against his knee, watching the fire burn low and listening to Mara breathe. Every time she shifted, he found himself looking over, half expecting her to vanish like a dream. But she didn't. She lay there, wrapped in that same white cloth, her face soft in the golden light of dawn. For the first time since he'd found her, she looked peaceful, like a storm-tossed bird finally resting its wings. Yet even in sleep, she kept one hand pressed over her chest, holding the fabric close, guarding it like her life depended on it. Luke stood and stretched his sore back. He moved quietly to pour himself coffee, the bitter smell filling the small kitchen. His hands still trembled a little from the night before. He kept replaying the moment when the riders came, their torches glowing like eyes of hell, and the strange fear in Mara's voice when she said they could feel her. He wanted to believe it was nonsense, but something about that glow he'd seen under her skin, it hadn't been a trick of the light. He knew what he'd seen, and it haunted him. When Mara stirred, he set his cup down and turned toward her. She blinked against the sunlight, confused for a moment before remembering where she was. Her gaze found him quickly, uncertain and tired. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. Luke shook his head. "Didn't feel right leaving you unguarded. Those men might come back." She sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. "They won't. Not yet." He frowned. "Not yet." Her eyes dropped to the floor. "They follow the light, but the cloth still hides me. It won't hold forever." Luke walked over, crouching in front of her. "Mara, you keep talking about this light like it's alive. What is it? What are you really running from?" For a long moment, she didn't speak. The fire crackled, and the wind brushed against the shutters. Finally, she looked up at him, her eyes dark and full of sadness. "You saw it, didn't you? Last night, when I moved by the fire." He hesitated. "I saw something, a shimmer. I don't rightly know what I saw." She took a slow breath, then let her fingers fall from the edge of the cloth. "This is why they called me cursed," she said. "When I was a child, my mother told me I was born with light in my veins. She said it was a gift from the mountain spirits, but the elders said it was a mark of death. Wherever I went, people whispered. Animals grew restless. The crops failed one year, and they said it was my fault. I tried to hide it, but when I turned 18, it began to show through my skin. They said the only way to cleanse the land was to sacrifice me to the river. Luke's jaw tightened. He'd seen fear turn good men into monsters before, but hearing it again still made his stomach twist. So you ran. She nodded, her voice trembling. My mother gave me this cloth before they took her. She said it would keep the light hidden. As long as I wear it, they can't sense me. But if it's removed, she looked up, and her voice dropped to a whisper. They'll come. They always come. Luke rubbed his jaw, staring into the fire. And those men last night, they're the ones after you. They serve the elders, she said. They hunt for anyone who breaks the old laws. But they won't stop with me. If they believe you helped me, they'll come for you too. He gave a small, dry laugh. Wouldn't be the first time I picked the wrong fight. That made her glance at him, the faintest trace of a smile touching her lips. You're not afraid. I was a soldier once, he said simply. Fear's something I've learned to keep company with. Doesn't mean I'll let it run my house. She studied him for a moment, as though trying to understand the kind of man who'd risk his life for a stranger. He turned back to the window, scanning the distant hills, half expecting to see the riders already on their way back. The sky was calm for now, a dull gray after the storm, but he knew calm could be deceptive. Hours passed quietly. Luke fixed the shattered window and fed the horses while Mara rested. The air outside had that strange, heavy stillness that came before something bad. When he came back inside, she was standing by the fireplace, the cloth glowing faintly where the sunlight touched it. He froze. Mara, it's glowing again. She turned, panic flickering in her eyes. It means they're close. Before he could respond, a sound split the air, the sharp crack of something striking wood. Luke's head snapped toward the window. An arrow quivered in the wall beside the fire. He grabbed his rifle and ran to the door, shouting, "Get down." Mara dropped to the floor as another arrow shattered the glass. Through the jagged hole, Luke saw shadows moving in the brush, 3, maybe 4 riders. The same ones from last night. They found you, he muttered. Mara crawled closer. Luke, you can't fight them. If you shoot, they'll burn this place down. Then what do you suggest? He said, his voice tight. Let 'em take you. Her eyes filled with tears. If I let them see the light, they'll stop. It's what they came for. He turned toward her sharply. No, you said it yourself. The light will draw them. You can't. Please, she whispered. It's the only way. Before he could stop her, she reached for the edge of the cloth. Mara, don't. Her hands trembled, her breath catching as she pulled the fabric away. For a heartbeat, everything went still. Then the room filled with light, pure, golden, and alive. It poured from her skin like sunlight breaking through a storm, filling every corner of the ranch house. Luke staggered back, shielding his face, the brilliance searing his eyes. Outside, the riders screamed. Their torches sputtered and died. The light spread beyond the house, flooding the fields, rolling across the hills like a wave. The air itself seemed to hum with power, vibrating deep in Luke's chest. Then, as suddenly as it had come, the glow faded. Silence. The wind stopped. The world went still again. Luke blinked against the dimness, his vision swimming. Mara knelt on the floor, her hair falling over her shoulders, the torn cloth lying beside her like a wilted petal. Her skin no longer glowed, but a faint shimmer lingered in her eyes. He dropped to his knees beside her, his voice hoarse. What did you just do? Her breathing was shallow, her face pale. I set them free. Free? Who? The ones they served, she whispered. Their souls were bound to darkness, to hatred and fear. The light, my light, released them. They won't come back. Luke looked toward the window. The riders were gone, only the wind moved through the wet grass outside. He turned back to her. You could have died. She smiled faintly. I was meant to die long ago. Maybe this was the reason I lived instead. He swallowed hard. You don't have to run anymore, Mara. You can stay here. Whatever this is, it doesn't scare me. Her eyes softened. You saw what I am, and you didn't run. He gave a small smile. Guess I needed a little light in my life. She laughed weakly, the sound breaking through the quiet like the first note of a song. He helped her to her feet and wrapped his jacket around her shoulders. She leaned into him, exhausted but peaceful. When the first rays of sunlight crept over the hills, the ranch was bathed in gold. Luke stood by the door, watching the light spill across the fields, feeling something in his chest shift, something that felt a lot like hope. Mara stepped beside him, her bare feet touching the cool floor, her face glowing softly in the dawn. The cloth lay torn on the ground, its power spent, but neither of them reached for it. It didn't matter anymore. Whatever she had been hiding from, whatever he had been carrying in silence, both had been burned away in that light. For the first time in a long time, Luke felt like the world was alive again. And as the sun rose higher, he realized that sometimes the things we're most afraid to reveal are the very things that save us in the end.